I mean, I've noticed that the Mars Society isn't just interested in putting an astronaut on Mars. You also want to colonize it. I mean, I think you've got a competition going at the moment to a 1 million person human settlement to kind of to design it and that kind of thing. I mean, how important do you think it is kind of the future of the human species that we become a multi-planet civilization?
Well, I think it's very important to the future, and it's very important to the present concept of the future. Okay. Let me actually talk more about the second than the first, because it's more here and now. Because you say, well, okay, it would be grand if 200 years from now there was human civilizations on Mars and on planets orbiting other stars. That would be grand. But why does it matter to me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Other than having an understanding that I participated in creating something grand, which is not to be dismissed. But here's why it matters. It matters because ideas have consequences. And our idea of what the future is like affects what's going to happen much sooner than that future. Okay. And, people talk about the threats to humanity today. They talk about the climate change, resource exhaustion, meteor impacts, epidemics. Okay. But were any of those things the cause of the great disasters of the 20th century? No. Okay. The great disasters of the 20th century were not caused by climate change, resource exhaustion, epidemics, or meteor impacts. They were caused by bad ideas. And in particular, one bad idea in a number of different forms. And what that one bad idea is that there isn't enough to go around. Okay. That is the bad idea. And, 1912, General Friedrich von Bernhardi, and I talk about this in The Case for Space, writes a book, which is an international bestseller. In English, its title is Germany and the Next War. You can still actually get it on Kindle. And what he said was, look, there's only so much to go around. So who's going to get it? Who's going to get Eurasia? It's either going to be us, the Germans, or the Russians. So sooner or later, we're going to have to fight it out with them. And should it be sooner or later? Well, clearly sooner, because we got to destroy them before they industrialize. Okay. So 1914, they take advantage of the assassination of the Archduke as a pretext to force things into World War I. And then 1939, Hitler, even more hysterically, the laws of existence require uninterrupted killing so that the better may live. Germany needs living space. This is all nonsense. Germany never needed living space. Germany has much less space today than it had in the Third Reich, and a larger population and a vastly higher standard of living. And they did it without successfully stealing anyone else's land. Okay, let alone their cows. Okay, they did it against their judgment, okay, by taking part in a global economy which expanded and advanced science and technology, which therefore advanced the productivity of every person on Earth. And these advances were made by people of many nations, including, oh yes, some cases Germans, but in many cases people the Germans were trying to exterminate. And so they were completely wrong. Okay, and it was nonsense. And then today, I happen to know for a fact, because I've spoken to them, that there are people in the American national security establishment who believe that war with China is inevitable.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because there's 1.3 billion of them, and if they all start having cars like Westerners, there won't be enough oil in the world. Okay, so they've got to be knocked down. And you can bet that they have opposite numbers in Beijing who look at this problem from the opposite side of the chessboard and think essentially the same thing from the opposite point of view. Now, if this kind of thinking is allowed to prevail, there's going to be war, and it's going to be much worse than the wars of the 20th century because we have much more powerful weaponry. But it's wrong because, well, let's take China, for example. Why is China's standard of living rapidly advancing? It's because of technologies, like, say nothing of the latest things like internets and iPhones, but just electricity developed in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
But where did the West's advances come from? From technologies like paper and printing that have been invented in China. So, in fact, the real situation of humanity is not that of uh, nations in a struggle for existence. Um, it, it is of a somewhat bumptious family of nations in a collective effort to expand the human prospect through technological innovation. And in fact, it will be greatly to the benefit of Americans and other Westerners if China should fully develop, because then it means that there'll be vastly more scientists and engineers in the world. It means a much faster rate of invention and global technological progress. And
Yeah.
so we're not enemies. Okay, we're just a family with a little competition on it. And but this prospect then, it's not that we're going to get oil from Mars.
Yeah.
What we're going to get from Mars is the refutation of this pathological idea that we're enemies. Okay? And it's this idea that is the greatest threat to humanity. We are not threatened by there being too many people. We are threatened by people who think there are too many people. And and uh, we're not threatened by there not being enough resources to go around. We're threatened by people who think there aren't enough resources to go around and are going to be willing to do something about it. And so if we develop Mars, if we create new branches of human civilization in space, we will have proven that the thesis that there isn't enough to go around is just false, because as limited as the Earth may appear, it comes with an infinite sky, and it's
Yeah.
wide.